Okay, welcome to today's edition of Rediscovering You. It's 28th of July. It's amazing. This year is already almost gone. Yeah. So today we're going to be discussing something something that is very, very close to my heart. Why? Because it's not theory to me. And as a person, I don't like to go into theoretical talk. It's a journey that thank you, Pastor Stanley. It's a journey that I'm in. It's a journey that all of us, as long as we are on this earth, we will continue to go through this journey of forgiveness. So today we're going to look at it from a very practical perspective. And if I go to my second slide, please confirm. We're going to be using the chat box a lot today. Can you confirm that you can see my slides, please? Just type in the chat box. I can see your slide. Help me just type in the chat box if you can see my slide. I know the chat box might be covering it, but just let me know. Okay, you can see my slide. Thank you, my barrister. Okay, so today, it's a new series that I've started, and I'm saying is hard talk, but we're going to make it easy. Why are we going to make it easy? Because it concerns all of us, including me. Do you understand? So please, this particular series, I'm not going to be talking a lot. We are going to be having a conversation because we are going to be learning from one another. All right. So today, our anchor persons will be Pastor Stanley, and I will tell you about Pastor Stanley in a little bit, and Dr. Ekene. But before we go on, I would like to check something with you. Can you see what I have if you see what I have on the slides here? I have 3 things going on. It's a very busy slide, and that's on purpose. Let me know your take. What do you think about there are 3 things, but I know you're not going to be focusing on the 3 items at the same time. So tell me what you think about any of the picture that catches your fancy. The first one says, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." And God replies, "I know." I read all on Facebook. Another one was one my brother told me. "Father, forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us, but make them no try them again." Then the last one says, "You can accept people without welcoming them back into your life. Apology accepted, access denied." So let's go to the chat box. Let's have a conversation. Like I said, today, what I do is I run transformational webinars. I don't even know whether to call it a webinar, but whatever it is, right? It's not just to come and sit and listen. So let me know what resonates, which one resonates with you. There are 3 items there. So you can go to the chat box and let me know which one resonates with you and maybe why. That's how we're going to start today. Okay, let me check the chat box and see your reactions. Two and 3 resonates with you. Okay. Okay. Vera says 2 and 3 resonates with me. Salome says, number 1, God keeps up with social media. Yes, that's really funny, but to be frank, I'm sure God keeps up with social media. Number 2, you agree because it's difficult sometimes to keep forgiving when people continue to hurt you. It makes you wonder if it is worth it sometimes. Yes. Number 3 is very straightforward. Dr. Ekene said, "I forgive, but I don't accept back." Interesting. That's some interesting conversations going on there. So yeah, we just wanted to start off these are real issues. I'm not going to give you theory. Sorry. I'm not going to give you something that you can just Google. You might as well just Google it and find what is in Google. But we're going to be having very open conversations. And the whole essence is that we hurt people, that's H-U-R-T people, H-U-R-T people, right? So we don't want to do that. And a lot of people are hurting people without knowing. And these webinars are geared at making us take a second look at ourselves and our environment to make sure that we are better people all the time. So let's continue. Again, I always talk about my mentors, right? Like, I don't believe that people just fall from the sky. And I keep on saying it. Once I hear somebody say, I'm a self-made man, I run, or I'm a self-made person, I run, because I know that God created us to be interdependent on one another. So these are people, of course, you're going to get these slides. These are people that have helped me in my journey since this missionary journey started. Those of you know who know my missionary journey. Okay. So, in case you're hearing any noise, I am currently with Chinazam in the hospital, but we have to do what we have to do, right? Yeah, you know, so sorry about that, but that's part of the job. Okay. Now, so the first panelist is Pastor Stanley. He's a banker.
Has overcome me, Kese.
Hello? Sorry, please, can you mute when you come in immediately? I don't want to mute everybody. Mute as you come in so that our recording is okay. Pastor Stanley is a banker, is a youth pastor and cross-cultural missionary with a background training in environmental technology. And he's newly married. Yeah, he's newly married. And then we have Dr. Ekene. I call her a natural counselor, but she has a PhD in business. So she's a lecturer and an entrepreneur with a background in business administration and management. And maybe to put into practice what she teaches, she's also the CEO of Royal Age Creation Celebrations. And you can see her Instagram handle there. She's blessed with 3 lovely kids. So I always like to tell people, summarize what I want to talk about, just in case your network messes up or you have to leave or something happens, right? Please, this is the summary of today's conversation. Even if you don't take out anything, don't forget this. This pain of unforgiveness can leave behind emotional wounds of rejection, fear, betrayal, and insecurity, right? Just as a physical wound becomes infected if left unattended, mark the word unattended, so an emotional wound can become contaminated with feelings of resentment, bitterness, and revenge without the healing of forgiveness. Please, I want you to pay attention to the word if left unattended. All right. So let's go on. Now we're going to have a conversation. Like I said, today is slightly different. We're going to be having conversations intermittently. So when you see this mark, just know that I'm trying to give everybody the mic, right? So let's look at this, what is going on here. I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quotes on the screen. The first one says, these are, you know, I put a lot of things on my WhatsApp status. These are some of the feedback that I got, and I would like to know your take. Let's have a conversation about this. And if you want to speak, please use the icon button and raise your hands. I will take the first 5 people. Otherwise, you can chat on, you can put your thoughts on the chat box. But if you want to speak, you know, and just take only 1 out of the 4, because there's no way we can go, just take 1 out of the 4. Somebody said, but sometimes this whole forgive and forget thing doesn't quite add up. What if there's a pattern of hurtful behavior, which Salome has already alluded to, or this wiping the slate clean isn't the wisest or safest path for you in a relationship, right? Another person says, my dad left us because my mom couldn't have a second male child. In Anowa, there is even one. He left us because my mom couldn't have a second male child. But that was 15 years ago. Now he's back. He's sick and he's broke. And he's talking about, please, let's forgive him. Another person sent to me, my spouse has beaten me so many times. What are you talking about? Omo, this week was not funny. Then another person said, and this is the one that really, really touched me. This is the one that really, really touched me. It says, I am a domestic violence perpetrator because I'm short-tempered. How do I forgive myself? I've never seen something so divine and so true, because typically people would not admit this, because when we think about forgiveness, we always look at forgiveness from what is being done to us. We never look at forgiveness from what if we're the ones that are hurting people, right? Okay, so this person is saying, I'm a domestic violence perpetrator because I'm short-tempered. How do I forgive myself? Let's go to the chat box and then let me see what your thoughts are. I can't see anything on the chat box yet, but that's really, okay, Debbie says, forgive, but don't forget the lesson. Okay, let me see if any other thing has come in. The first, in my opinion, may take time. Let me see what's the first. Salome says may take time, but sometimes that whole forgive and forget thing doesn't quite add up. Oh, what if there is a pattern of hurtful behavior? Yes, yes, that makes sense. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, it's only Salome that has put something. Let me see if there's any. Always, yeah, Joake says always hard to forget. Yes, because we didn't lose our memory. Yeah, we didn't lose our memory. Yeah, let's bring it on. We have about 5 minutes to have a conversation. In case you want to say anything, like I said, these conversations, this particular series, it's not just about view graphs. I want us to have a conversation. And I don't see anybody raising hand. So let me go back to the chat box. Always had to forget. Let's go back. My dad left us, and this one says, my spouse has beaten me so many times. My spouse has beaten me so many times. And you're telling me to forgive him. And then the other person that says, I'm actually somebody who does this. How do I forgive myself? Okay, I see more chats coming up. Let me see. Salome says, two, the pattern of hurtful behavior would eventually wear the beating spouse out. Forgive, but in words of my older sister, cut off. Okay. Joake said, had to forgive too if the person is not remorseful. Ah, that's a good one. Had to forget if the person is not remorseful. Interesting. Okay, let me see if we have one more. It's only 3 people who are chatting. Only Salome, Jowoke, and Debbie. Only Salome and Jowoke. All right, let's move on. Ada says, I feel where there is a pattern, it's best to create some distance as well. Forgive, but protect your space. That is fantastic. And something Jowoke said here, he says, Jowoke said, if had to forgive too if the person is not remorseful. Please, I want you to remember that particular thing, because we're going to go back to it. ID says, well, our heart is always what the devil wants, but we'll forgive and keep loving the person, but protect ourselves from future hurt. Absolutely, absolutely. That's a fantastic conversation going on there. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in our panelists. So let me now do a proper introduction so we can see who we have here. Pastor Stanley, I'm going to pin you now. I would like to hear your take on all this. Let me pin you. Yes. So Pastor Stanley, unmute yourself, and then let's have your take on one of these issues, and then tell us your personal story on this matter. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Madam Stella, for having me again. It's a privilege. It's been, in fact, I did something with this topic on my WhatsApp status, and you'll be amazed the kind of feedback I got. But for me, the most interesting experience on the screen here, it's the last one. The person who is thinking about forgiving his or herself. So a lot of us really don't really look inwards. We don't really look into such areas. We don't really see that we struggle with this, because sometimes it might be subconscious, and it comes through guilt. Now, the truth is that each and every one of us present here today, including myself speaking, in fact, when I was pondering about this topic, and combined with the lot of inputs I got when I put out some questions on my WhatsApp status, and I just got people sharing experiences. In fact, yesterday was a whole long period of reflection for me. And I began to think about the capacity I have to hurt other people and vice versa. So I began to think, in what ways have I hurt people? And in what ways have I been hurt? Because it's easy to remember what you did to the other person, or it's easy to remember how people offended you. But have you thought of how you offended others, or how you angered others, or how you hurt others? And so, have you also thought about how you may be, or you have in time past, hurt yourself? And so for me, looking inward, I began to think about ways where I have hurt myself by making some wrong decisions or venturing into things that I shouldn't have. And I needed to forgive myself. So I resonate more with the last scenario. So in doing that, what I came to discover for myself, which I am sharing now, this is my own perspective. And I want to begin by saying that I know a lot of people might have come on this platform this evening with different expectations. For some people, you might be on a forgiveness journey. There might be somebody you have to forgive. For some others, it might be yourself. But whatever we are going to be sharing and discussing here, even I look forward to hearing and learning from people's experiences too. What I told myself is that for some people, for some of us, it might be just a seed planted. For some of us, it might be a crack on our strong walls. For some of us, it might be a food for thought that we might leave here with. But whatever the case is, this is my bottom line. That forgiveness, whether you are the giver, in other words, whether you are the forgiver or the one who is receiving the forgiveness, so the forgiver or the forgiven, is a decision, right? However, the effects and results of forgiveness is a journey. This is my own experience. This is my own take. I may be wrong. You might agree with me. You may not agree with me. But I know that forgiveness is a decision, but the working of that forgiveness, the outplay of it, the effects, letting go of the offense, letting go of the pain, beginning to see things differently, beginning to gain trust or rebuild trust, as the case may be, is a process. And so I want to be conscious about every step of that process. I want to be conscious about the fact that whether I am on the giving end or the receiving end, I know what is going on part time in my chest, in my heart. So the person who is a domestic violence perpetrator is thinking about the fact that he has to forgive himself. So he knows that somewhere he's in need of forgiveness. He's in need of forgiveness. But in this case, he has to play both roles, being the forgiver and the forgiven. And in fact, that is a very difficult one. However, if you know you have that need, or when you realize you have that need, that is the break of a new dawn. Good thing. You have realized that you have to forgive yourself for perpetrating this act. Now, it also means that there's some form of remorse. I'm judging by the few words we have in the story. So there's some form of remorse. However, how will this work out? How will this work out? So make the decision, yes, but be patient with yourself, to recover from the effects of the damage done. I don't know if this answers so that
yes.
I leave.
Yeah, that's fine. Before we come to your personal story, I want to get the Dr. Ekene's take. So I'm going to bring her on. Dr. Ekene, let's have your take on the conversation, and then we go back to Pastor Stanley for a personal story.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Good.
It's a bit low. Can you increase your volume? Yes, it's better now. Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. So I think Pastor Stanley have said all. My take is I have to, if I need to forgive you, I need to heal inside. I need to heal inwards, because of course I've gone through hurts, in the process. So if I don't forgive myself, if I don't heal within me, I can't even find myself forgiving somebody. So it has to come from within, first of all, me forgiving myself. Like in the first case of the dad who left the mom, because of a second male child and the rest of them, the hurt, it has been on for a very long time. It's taken like 15 years. So you don't just expect that once you come in, I open the door for you and you come in. I mean, it's not like that. Like Pastor said, it's the process. So I can actually forgive you from afar, because of course I'm already scared that whatever that happened might repeat again. So if I have healed from within and forgiven myself, because in the process of trying to being hurtful or being hurt by somebody's action, you find out that you are even sinning. There is that some atom of sin within you, because when you've not forgiven somebody, it's actually a sin too. So if I've been able to heal from within and I've forgiven you, I've forgiven myself, I've let go of the hurt within, I will be able to take you back. I'll be able to forgive you, but I won't take you back. That's my take. I won't take you back. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being very open. I want to go back to something that Jowoke said. She talked about the person showing remorse. And I wanted to say, before I call on Pastor Stanley to share a personal story, I just have this thought at the back of your mind. What if that person who hurts you died yesterday and didn't have an opportunity to show remorse? Just hold that thought. All right, let's go back to Pastor Stanley. Like I said, this is we're not doing a theory here. So share with us an experience where you have had to either forgive yourself or forgive somebody. And how that happened.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. So I have many stories. Unfortunately, a few of them I may not have all the details because it's been a while, but I'll share three of them. One, and the three will be very short. It's just a summary of what happened, and it will cut across the different experiences of me having to forgive myself, me having to forgive someone. So the first one I would want to say is as a child growing up, I grew up in a family that was infested, or in fact, it was all about domestic violence. So at as early as age 13, I had a prayer point. I used to pray to God. And that prayer was that my parents would divorce, because I just couldn't sleep at home from age 9. And this is when I became very conscious of what was going on. I could watch my dad hit my mom severally and really abuse her, like really terribly. I don't want to give details, but it was brutal. It was evil, you know. And so
They
this
put
was
that their brand name is used on it.
this was the same person I was
Should be
living.
playing.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you. I'll just mute everybody, but I can hear you.
It's fun in this one.
So this was the same person I was living with.
They muted what I took from
I
their
couldn't
shop.
just stand it. I couldn't just stand it. And it took years upon years to let go. I wouldn't lie about that. It was a very hurtful feeling because I really loved my mom, and there was never a time where she attacked back. So she was just a victim. And so watching the woman go through such kind of abuse was really painful to me as a child growing up. So it got to a point where, and she wouldn't leave the marriage, of course, she wouldn't leave the marriage because she's a Christian. You know how our Christian mothers. Anyways, it became my prayer point. But guess what? Somewhere down the line, they divorced. Somewhere down the line, 28 years after marriage, they eventually divorced. And so God answered my prayer. But now I had a father who I have to call father, who I have to relate with, and who I have to go to from time to time for my basic needs to deal with. I had him to deal with. And I grappled with that a lot because there was no advice, there was no truth, there was no example or modeling that he could lay before me that was worthy of emulation as far as I'm concerned. Now, that doesn't take out the fact that he had other good aspects of himself, but I just couldn't deal with this fact. So it took me a long time to forgive my father. It took me a really long time. As a matter of fact, I forgave him totally in 2017. And this is as far back as 2002. So from 2002 all the way, I grew up with that pain and that resentment, and I forgave him. Eventually, my total healing happened in 2017. Now, that's my first story. The second story.
Okay, so Pastor Stanley, you know, I know that this conversation we're even going to have up to past 3, but I want to stop here and ask you, why did you forgive him? Why?
Okay, so number one, first of all, I realized that the more I held on to the pain, the more deep it cuts in. The more I held on to the pain, it was like a burden that I was carrying. I'm a very sensitive person. Some people say I look tough, but a lot of them eventually discover when they come close that I'm as emotional as you can imagine. So I will always tell people I have a fragile heart, forget the face. And so I don't know how to bear a grudge. Naturally, that is my natural design. I don't know how to bear a grudge. It is my natural design. And that was why when I explained earlier, I came to a conclusion that, see, you might decide to forgive, but because of our form, because of our design, because of our experiences, because of the way we all respond to life differently, be rest assured that the outplay of that forgiveness will not be instant. And that is why a lot of us get it wrong. We just want to turn on the switch. Oh, I've forgiven you. Boom, we're back to normal. All is well, all is good, we are fine. As a matter of fact, even though I said my total healing came in 2017, I am still seeing that there is progress, because as far back just from 2021, or let me say 2020, from lockdown till now, I'm seeing the strength, the bond between myself and this father of mine even get better and stronger. And there are a lot of factors. For time's sake, I might not be able to itemize them, and I will as time goes on if I have the opportunity to. But there are a lot of factors that are now beginning to come to play. It's just like a food you are preparing. As you add different ingredients, you are approaching, the final product. And that is what has happened to me on this journey with my father. Okay, so I struggle with that a lot. In fact, the major striking thing about it was that I was also a victim of that abuse. So one of the days when I was separating the fights, right? My dad, I could remember I was about 11 years old then. My dad shoved me off. It was in the bathroom, a very spacious bathroom. He shoved me off and I went all the way and I hit my waist on the edge of the bathtub. And I had a dislocation that nobody was aware of. I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell my father. I lived with that pain. And so for every time I felt that pain, and it lasted for a while because, in fact, there were some stretches and some sports I would do, I would begin to feel that pain. And it will bring back the memory of the source of the pain. So that was even part of the reasons why it extended for so long. But however, I couldn't just take it anymore. I knew that I wasn't doing myself good. Now, need I mention, they've introduced me as a pastor, of course. So you can tell I have a Christian background. I'm a Christian. I know what God expects. The Bible tells us to forgive, right? So I knew that somehow, eventually, I have to forgive this man. You see, so I'm answering your question now. What made me actually forgive? The reason why I forgave was, number one, I wasn't happy. Even though we were not in the same space, I still had that grudge. Did I need him? No, I didn't need him for anything. Because as far as I was concerned, I stopped receiving. In fact, I called my dad one day and I told him, you know what? You don't have to send me nothing. I can be fine without you. And this was me at age 15. At 15, I was done. I told him, don't send me anything. I'll be fine by myself. I can take care of myself. And that was it. So it had nothing to do with what I was gaining. But I knew that this relationship somehow needs to, be restored. I don't know to what degree, I don't know to what degree. It might not be me jumping over him. I don't do that even up to now. We talk like colleagues at work, cordial colleagues. Hello, hi, how are you doing? And it's genuine. It's genuine from both ends because yes, forgiveness has happened, but it's not like sweet daddy and son relationship because it's not there. It's not there. I'll be lying if I want to, push it beyond what it should be or what I can get.
Yeah.
The question, do I still feel hot? Have I forgiven? What is the state of my heart? And so that is what I'm calling everybody to, because a lot of times we are quick to focus on the external. So the factors that we cannot control, the factors that we cannot critically observe. Is this person truly remorseful? That's what you're looking at. You're watching out for the remorse. And so somebody can come and put up a show and act like they're remorseful, but they don't really care. They just want you to say, oh, I've forgiven you, and they moved on. Some people also do not realize the extent of damage their actions have caused you. And so they cannot be remorseful to the degree of which you expect them to. So these are factors that are beyond your own control. So I'll rather begin now to look into myself. How is my heart faring? So the first thing, even right now, that experience, this is just one of the stories. I'm yet to share the one that had to do with me forgiving myself, and another one that had to do with me needing forgiveness. So I've gone through all the second. I've been in a desperate. Okay, let me just hint this one. I don't know if I have the time. Am I good with time?
We will see how it goes, but let's finish with the first one. Then I'll bring up Dr. Ekene. Then we'll come back. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, let me just stick to the first. This first experience, still with my dad, having to forgive him. So, like I said, two factors. Number one, I was in pain. I couldn't bear the grudge anymore because it was such a heavy weight in my chest. And so I want to go to bed light. I've not been sleeping fine from childhood because I'm thinking, will he hit her in the night? And that was the case because most of the violence happens at night when the children are sleeping. So I'm the one that will stay awake to watch out. My mom had 4 children. Fortunately, I was the closest to her. So I was like her right-hand man. I was like her bodyguard. So I will watch out. Unfortunately, I cannot help. I will just be there observing, taking mental pictures of everything. So even as I'm talking about it, it's playing right before me. like a movie. I have a photographic memory, so I can remember it vividly. But the good news is that I don't feel as heavy as I used to then. And that is because I have allowed time to take its course. That is a factor. I know that as we go on, it will come up. But so two things that I'm selling here is, number one, what made me forgive? I couldn't take it anymore. It was too heavy for me. I had to let it go. And number two, as a Christian, I knew fully well that it was expected of me. Not just because of the law, not just because of what the scripture says, but eventually God's word was ultimately going to point back to my advantage and for my good. So when God says we should forgive, he knows why, because he knows what he put in us and how he formed us, and he knows what unforgiveness can do in us. And so I had
you.
to, and so that was how I led.
Thank you so much. I can't even, having related with you, I'm sure my Deborah and Salome are like, seriously, I can't even perceive 10% of what you are sharing in my interaction with you. I can't even perceive it. And to think that your sister used to kind of care for Deborah and Salome in the children's church, and you mean your sister was seeing all those things, but she was still able to care. That's a part two, because I already know that this conversation will not end in part one. So we're going to have a break, and that break, I will introduce a topic, and then we'll go back to the issue of forgiveness. I would like to call Dr. Ekene. My personal philosophy is that you make time for what you think is important to you. But Dr. Ekene told me a story that touched me so much that even that sentence I used to make about making time for what is important to you resonated so much, even much more. Dr. Ekene, let's see what we can do in the next five minutes thereabouts. Tell me the story of that, your classmates. I don't want to preempt the story. Just share with us what happened, how it ended up, and the lessons you took from there, and what you think we can do to find more time in this world of artificial intelligence.
Good evening. Okay. Thank you for having me back. I hope you can hear me. Okay, so the topic says finding time. So there's some underlying questions. Number one is, who do we find time for? What determines who or what we actually create our time for? So I think that's the underlying question, but I think I have a story to tell. And when I'm done with the story, we'll be able to answer these basic questions. Okay, so fast forward to March, April. We attended one burial in Enugu with my classmates, secondary school classmates. And, I got talking with one of my friends, and she was like, hey, we went to the same, coincidentally, we went to the same primary school and secondary school. So she was like, a set above us and a set below us, they have this group in primary school, and they're actually doing very well. So I was like, why don't we open up the group? She was like, that she doesn't have that kind of time, she doesn't have time for people, they are stressed and the rest of them. So when I now got home, that I was like, okay, let me just give it a try. So I created a WhatsApp group, brought in the people that I know. So from there, within the space of 2-3 days, we're over 100 in that group. And, we are interacting, so it got to a point where somebody gave me somebody's number to add to the group. I found I couldn't add the person to the group, so I sent an invite. So after some time, I noticed the guy didn't join because the name was, it sounded so familiar because I can remember that I did 2 classes with the guy back then in primary school. So I was now asking the guy, I was like, how come this guy have not been able to join the group? So he was like that the guy said he was sick and that he would join as soon as he gets better. I said, okay. So after like a week, I got a chat from WhatsApp. Unfortunately, the person didn't introduce himself. He was like, Ekene, good day, this, that. I'm very sick at the hospital somewhere in Enugu, and I need money for blood transfusion. So I was like, who is this? He introduced himself. I said, okay. He said,
Come here.
can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
So, okay, yeah, okay. So I was like, what's the problem? He said, so I had to, talk to one or two people, and we were able to, raise some money and then paid for the blood transfusion. Well, one speed was like, why will you just pay for somebody's blood transfusion without even finding out what the issue was? So I had to go back to the group. I was like, two things are involved. Number one, we need to find out what is actually the problem, to the extent this guy has gone. And then secondly, there's a possibility that somebody is actually using this guy's number, maybe to dupe. So they agreed with me, and we set up a 4-man committee, and they went to the hospital. Lo and behold, the guy was down with cancer. And to shock you, he has not done any treatment. He had no drug transfusion, no chemo, nothing. He was just there in the hospital. So we now came back and was like, we had to, strategize that this is not what a 4-man committee or 5-man committee can handle. So we had to take it to the general group, and we're able to raise money for this guy. So he started chemo, started treatment, life came back to this guy, and he was so happy, and we found that the family, he was as if literally abandoned him in the hospital. His mom was already late. The dad was aged at the village. The siblings, they don't have money, so they just abandoned this guy at the hospital. And I think he had a problem with his marriage, so he was just him there. So we took over the treatment and the rest of them. So fast forward to 2 weeks after, I think a Tuesday was supposed to be his birthday. On a Saturday, he chatted me up and was like, Tuesday is my birthday. Can you please come over and celebrate my birthday with me and other people? I was like, hey, I'm actually in Anambra. I'm not in Enugu. So he was like, oh, that's true. That he forgot that I was not in Anambra. So I had to contact one or two people and was like, please, can you people go to the hospital on Tuesday and take care of this guy? I don't mind sending money for cake and the rest of them so that you can handle him, celebrate his birthday with him. So, but on that Tuesday morning, I was actually restless somehow. So I took a trip that I didn't actually plan for. I had to go down to Enugu, so when we got there, I came in with a cake. He was so happy. He hugged me so tight, he was like, thank God you could make it, something like that. So we stayed with him, encouraged him, prayed with him, and I left. It didn't take up to a week after that visit. We are told that this guy entered coma. So on a Friday, I was just writing in the group. I was like, how many of you have been able to go see this guy? They were like, we've been planning, we've been so busy. I was like, so busy that you can't spare 30 minutes, 10 minutes to even go see this guy. I know we have up to more than 20 people living in that vicinity with that guy. And you people cannot spare 10 minutes. I just wrote it that there was like, I hope and I pray that at the end of the day, that people will not regret this action. I just wrote it in that group, not knowing what was actually going on. So unfortunately for some of them that eventually went on Saturday morning to go see the guy, by the time they got to the hospital, found his corpse. The guy was already dead. It had that Friday night that I was, writing that stuff on the page. So when I got the news, I cried, but after crying, I was actually, fulfilled in my spirit, because if I didn't answer that call, if I didn't go to that room, if I did not open that guy's message, I'm sure that by now or for the rest of my life, I'll be regretting it. I will be, in fact, I won't be at peace with myself. I'll be regretting it for the rest of my life that I wasn't able to, look out for this guy. Now, back to our question. Who do we find time for? what actually can we actually find time for, or what determines who and what we are, we're able to find time for. So when that message came, a lot of us, most times when people send messages to us, we open it from WhatsApp to check whether it's a message that we want to respond to or not. I mean, it's normal. Almost everybody is guilty. So because of the way maybe the country is and society, most times when people send messages to us, we open it from up and then to check whether it's something we need to answer or not. So number one answer to all this question is we need to have the ability to feel people's pain, what people are going through, what we call empathy. If we don't have that feeling within us, whether it's our family member or whether it's my co-worker or whatever, we will not be able to answer or find time for people around us. So number one is the ability to feel people's pain around us. That is determine whether we'll be able to find time for people, or not. Then secondly is that most times finding time for people around us does not necessarily mean have any financial obligation. Let me tell you something. This guy, in his own case, I wouldn't say I put in so much money into that venture, but I was able to attract people that were able to help. Most times when people send messages to us, you might like, okay, even if it's, something that has to do with finance, we might like, oh, sorry, I'm not financially buoyant. I might not be able to help you, but if you can do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. When you talk to somebody, you somehow have solved half of the problem. But most times, because we feel maybe it's because of money, or maybe because we've been helping people or finding time for people and they take us for granted, we tend to run away. Another issue here is, another point I want to make out of this story is that everything we do in life is time bound. That's what the Bible says, time to eat, time to sleep, time to do that. So everything we do in life is time bound. And then secondly, time, where time passes and we can never get it back. We can never get time back. When that opportunity passes us, forget it. There are a lot of people that maybe your children, you don't even have time to discuss with them, chat, play. By the time they get to, the level that you can't play with them again, I mean, it's gone. Or maybe by the time they leave your house, it's gone. Or maybe it's a brother or a sister or a colleague. Maybe the person leaves that vicinity. Or maybe the person have been, change they say is constant. So maybe most times I might be seeking for your attention. And then by the time you decide to give me that attention, I might not need it anymore. So time passes and we can never get it back. And at the end of the day, we will live in regret. We would have said, hey, if I had known, I would have done this, I have done that, but it's gone. So the end point in this story is try to reach out to people. It might not really necessarily be financial help, but there's some people that might be in a state where their mental health, they're having mental health issues. Just a little talk, just a little smile, just a little, can bring the person back.
Or a hug.
Have the problem halfway solved. So I think
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I already knew that we are not going to finish this conversation today. And like I said, I don't want to take more than I ask people for. So please, I think I will just ask for like 5 more minutes, and I will just, the reason I will rush through my slides is because you're going to get the slides. The intention is not, the essence of the conversation is not for the slides. So I will rush through it in a few minutes, and I'll open the floor again for us to have a closing conversation from 1 or 2 people. So if you have anything to share with us, if you have an experience you've had, 2-3 minutes, just put up your hand so that I can call you. If I don't see any hands up, then I'll just yield back to the panelists and then we end. So let me go back to my slides, back to the forgiveness matter. I think Pastor Stanley and Dr. Ekene, they've already peeped into my slides. I don't know how they did that. So there are some myths about forgiveness, and that's why it's typically a very difficult thing to do. People say forgive and forget. How can you forget? You didn't lose your memory, right? People say forgive and don't feel pain. That's not possible. Forgive and be friends. It's not in all the cases. Forgive and grant unqualified access. It may not happen in all cases. Why? Forgiveness can happen in a place of work. Forgiveness can happen between spouses. Forgiveness can happen, unforgiveness can happen between siblings. Unforgiveness can happen between you and a race. So if you're people who were involved in slave trade, there are people who are called Osu. Do you understand? So the issue of forgiveness is, it's so multidimensional. It can be institutional, it can be personal, it can be of a whole race. That's why you hear, oh, people from this place, they don't marry from this place because so and so happened. Forgive and don't hold accountable. This particular one is the reason why a lot of people struggle with forgiveness, because they can't believe that you can forgive someone and hold somebody accountable. The story is told of the judge who found out that the person he was about to sentence was his best friend in school that he's been looking for. It was at the point of sentencing that he realized that, oh, this armed robber is my best friend. He actually still sentenced the person to jail and now went and paid the ransom and bailed the man. So you can forgive and still hold people accountable. Now, the main essence of this webinar is about what I found out from personal experience, not theory, from personal experience, because I, as a person, have had a lot of forgiving to do, both to forgive myself, both to forgive people, both to forgive institutions. But the reason you're able to see me talk about forgiveness is because I have forgiven, I have been forgiven, I have also given forgiveness, and forgiving, ing, is something that we have to find a way to make a part of our lives. Why? People will hurt us, you will hurt people. There are some people that will hurt you and may never apologize. They will pretend that they don't know what they have done. There are some people that you can't throw them away. Why? They're related to you. So for instance, you cannot throw away your sibling, but we will get, I don't want to preempt myself. So the reason I became interested in the issue of unforgiveness is because people who hang onto grudges are more likely to experience severe depression, heart attack, pain, high blood pressure. Now, listen, remember, maybe you're the person that has been hurt, right? It's not even talking about the other party, but look at what is happening to you because you are holding on to a hurt. So it doesn't have anything to do with the other person. It's all about you. And I'm coming now. So how do you even know that probably you're beginning to even think about this issue of forgiveness? Because what normally happens is that we put it so far away in our mind and we don't talk about it, we don't discuss it, but it's there. But when an opportunity comes for that thing to be discussed, the velocity and the enormity of pain that is associated with the conversation, and yet the person will still be telling you, I don't forget that in a beg, may they carry their wahala go. But you and I know that is not true. So the fact that you are on this webinar today already shows that you're already even thinking about it. And for me, that's a big plus. Sometimes when we are living in unforgiveness, we think that something bad should happen to that person or that institution or that race that did something to us. It's still part of the journey. I think the one that really got me was when somebody say, God no go fit answer that person prayer if you know what the person do me. Unfortunately, that's not how God works. Do you understand? And sometimes also, thinking about the matter and trying to justify the actions that we take. So because somebody has done something wrong, you also do something wrong. Because In fact, you tell yourself, if this person didn't do this thing, I wouldn't have done that. And then, of course, talking about it over and over and over and over again. There are usually two extremes. It's either we don't talk about it, but it's somewhere, or we continue to talk about it again and again and again. But the question is this, and Pastor Stanley already went into my slides by the Spirit. How do we forgive? Because what I find out is that, like C.S. Lewis said in his book, Mere Christianity, forgiveness is such a nice topic until you have something to forgive. It's so easy to talk about it until you really have something to deal with. Imagine an 11-year-old child separating fights. Think about it. An 11-year-old separating fights, and he has had to forgive the person. So first of all, understand that you're the most important person in this matter. Understand how much you matter to you. And don't accept that there's nothing you can do about it. Because this learned helplessness is one of the reasons why forgiveness is hard. So what do? You exercise divine judgment. You can do something about it. But first of all, ask yourself, what is it that is within my control? Like I asked the question, what if somebody hurts you and then the person died without asking for forgiveness? What do? You can still do something. You just have to let it go. If you matter to yourself, right? Then I have already talked about maybe people have issues. Oh, the people took us as slaves and this, or maybe you're in a serial relationship, or imagine that you're married to somebody and the person has another family. Ben Carson, we all know the story of bigamy. But how do we forgive? That's not the first thing to do, is to decide to forgive. There's nobody can force anybody to forgive, and nobody can determine for anybody when to forgive. But again, remember the first thing that I said, you are the most important person. And if you look, I will send the slide, if you look at the neurobiology of unforgiveness, then if you matter to yourself, then you will decide whether you want all those things to be happening to you because of somebody or something that you don't have control over. Then I said, do something. You can't say you can't do anything. Because somebody can say, well, it's not within my control now, so I can't do anything. No, you can do something. And that thing can be, you can talk about it. You can hold the people accountable. You can walk away. You're even allowed to mourn about it. It's your right. You can mourn about it, but don't pretend that the pain is not there. And then I saw this quote, and I will get the reference before I send this to you. Forgiveness is not just about saying the words. And Pastor Stanley already muted it. It's an active process. It is a process. It is a process in which you make a conscious decision to let go of negative feelings, whether the person deserves it or not. I told you to hold the thought of what Jowoke had said, if the person shows remorse. Now see, whether the person deserves it or not. Why? Because you have to protect yourself, because you are important, because you matter. And that's the whole essence of this platform, Rediscovering You, that you are the most important person in this matter. As Swash says, as you release anger, resentment, and hostility, you begin to feel empathy, compassion, and sometimes even affection for the person who wronged you. However, please look at the next thing that I put there. Build boundaries. When you forgive, typically there will be some level of empathy. But because you cannot change that institution, because you cannot change that person, because you cannot change, you're not the one in control of how that person behaves, you need to put a boundary. And this skill of building boundaries is a different conversation altogether. It's because we don't have the skills to confront issues. It's because we don't know how to hold people accountable. It's because we don't know how to build boundaries. It's because we think that once I forgive the person, I must restore friendship. I must give the person unqualified access into my life. That's why we find it difficult to forgive. And when I'm sending out these slides, I will send a few links to help us begin to know how these things are done. Many times we are told to do something, to do something, to do something, but how does it work in real life? So this picture here is what came to my mind when somebody has unforgiveness. And listen, for you to forgive somebody, you have to show yourself some level of compassion, because forgiveness, you are releasing power that you could have held back. So you're actually doing a big deal. That's why I submit that forgiveness is a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. So finally, I said you can also seize the friendship, and at some point, if your safety is not guaranteed, you can actually run. So how do I know, in rounding up, sorry, I've taken like extra minutes, in rounding up, how do I know that I've forgiven? Changes will occur in your thinking, in your speech, your attitude, in your pain threshold, and of course, in your body. So finally, is forgiveness a journey or a destination? And I ask the question, do you have anybody to forgive? If you have anybody to forgive, I can't tell you, forgive the person, forgive the person. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. I would just want to propose to you to please think about forgiving the person. Why? Because science has even found out that this, apart from the spiritual aspect of it, what I'm giving you is scientific evidence of what happens when you don't forgive. So my plea and my message tonight is, by the time you go through these slides, by the time you go through the through the recording, if you have time, let's begin to think about it if you have anything to forgive. And with that, we come to the end of today's webinar, and I hope you you found it very useful. So yeah, let's see who we have. If anybody has anything to share, we have 2 minutes. Otherwise, I will just close us. I wanted to bring Dr. Ekene back and Pastor Stanley, but I've already taken 10 minutes. Otherwise, okay, Pastor Stanley has something to say, and I think we will close with that. All right, Pastor Stanley, go ahead. You're muted. You're muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay,
Thank you.
go ahead.
I was looking at the slides that talk about the neurobiology of unforgiveness. I'm just lending my voice to this because it is real. At age 13, I was diagnosed with a slightly enlarged heart. That was my medical condition. And just in the midst of this conversation, and I'm thinking, could this have been part of the problem? Because like I said, emotionally, I was struggling. I was carrying something very heavy. I knew that I was a very angry person. You know, I was short-tempered. Because of course I had a lot to battle with. I was hot. I was holding back the grudge. And now looking at the neurobiology of unforgiveness, I'm seeing heart attack there. Because I know then I used to have shortness of breath. And then when we went to the hospital to do a checkup, they had me do an x-ray, and they said it was a very big x-ray film. And then I could see the image and everything. And the report on a plain sheet, very simple. The doctor just wrote there, slightly enlarged heart, in brackets, oedema. I don't know what that means. We have a doctor here, she might know. But so I'm just trying to resonate with that slide. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know, I'm very sure we're going to have a part 2 of this, but I just wanted to share with you. It's a journey I've been through. It's a journey I am going through, and we will continue to forgive and need forgiveness ourselves as long as we live on this earth. But what really bothered me was about the neurobiology of unforgiveness and what it does in our hearts. So please, with these few words of mine, I hope you enjoyed today. I know there were some issues about people coming in and all that. We'll rectify it next month. Until next month, is bye-bye from Rediscovering You. Thank you, everyone. I don't want to get into trouble by calling names, but thank you, everyone. Please, if you can show your face, if you can. Thank you. Let me stop recording.
Very much for having.
Thank you so much.